Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Mile High Sports Symposium. I am JT Matthews at JTMatthews01 on Twitter, and I'm here with the doctor at DR_Manning on Twitter as well. Doc, wow, what a way to start the show. Tons of technical difficulties, but we've made it. We're here, and I guess we're better for it.
Yeah, I go out there and dribble and just do my best. I just try and do it for the teams and all the people. Man, it's like getting through and like getting there. I never realized how much I appreciated it until now. That just the simple use of technology makes my heart happy. So yeah,
we're here. We made it.
We're here.
Well, let's jump in then, because I think we got a lot to talk about. There's a lot going on in Colorado sports, and we have to follow up from the draft, which feels like it was a long time ago, but it was just a mere 6 days ago, the first day of the draft. We've had some time to digest the Broncos draft class. Before the Broncos draft class, I do want to just kind of talk generally about the draft. What was kind of your takeaway from day one, just kind of after day one was all said and done? Obviously, we don't know what's going on with Shedeur, aside from the fact that the Giants.
Yeah, I think we have a better understanding about Shedeur than maybe we thought that we did.
Sure.
So I'm interested to get your take, but sorry, what's my overall first round take?
Let's just go day one. Let's start with day one. We'll get to Shedeur because I do want to talk about Shedeur. There's a lot to talk about there, but I want to just kind of get your takeaway from day one. Broncos or non-Broncos related, what was your kind of big takeaway?
Yeah, my big takeaway, I think was the NFL kind of refusing to buy into the trend, right? So outside of Tat McMillan, you all had me fooled, trying to be like he's gonna slip past, got my hopes up and stuff. Like you did it to me. I allowed it. It's fine. But the next one I don't think was taken until Golden. You saw the Brock Bowers effect with two tight ends going in the top 15, when usually that's not a position that you would heavily evaluate that. You saw the cream of the crop of the running back and going in the top 10, but the rest of the league didn't bite. So Marion Hampton obviously goes at 22, but the rest of the league didn't. That wasn't, we thought maybe there'd be 3, potentially 4, could 4 sneak in, all that kind of stuff. They still, the league still kind of understood, or at least currently, that there's plenty of capable runners. We're not going to overdraft that position. And offensive line, even in a very flawed class of offensive linemen, particularly tackles. But even if you add Booker, I don't know off the top of my head about how many went in the top 20, let alone the first round. But Campbell, Membo, Banks, Booker, Simmons, Zabel. That's Donovan Jackson, and that's what, 7? 7 out of 32. It's almost a quarter of the first round picks were offensive linemen. Same with the trenches. So it was kind of chalk in the sense of what does the league value? The league values offensive line play. Like, who gets paid the money? And it's interesting because the skill positions, even if you got 2 tight ends in the first round, the league still really, you got to be really special for the league to view you as a, first half of the first round kind of pick. Right. And the league didn't bite. The league didn't fall for the banana in the tailpipe or the fannin in the window, right? Like things like that 2 months ago, we were, historic tight end class. And there could be as many as whatever that might be. And there were some really that didn't get drafted at all. Guys that fell to the 6 that we all thought, all that kind of stuff. So to me, I think it was the league. It's reactionary, but it's not always immediate. And so I think there's another show me, for Henderson to fall that far, Junkins being a second rounder, Caleb, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
That was, I think that was the league saying, hey, we value this position more than we have, but let's not get crazy. And we still value protecting the quarterback and rushing the quarterback. And, that's really where the predominant picks were. So it was shocking to not be shocked a little bit, we were all amped up for offensive playmakers going off the board and all that stuff. Really, it didn't, outside of Ted McMillan and Genty, you get a couple of tight ends. So you got 4 skill players in the top 21.
Yeah. 22.
There's teams that really could have used it, some pretty offensive barren teams. Yeah, I did that on purpose. Jade Barron, if you will. So that's mine. What was your take after kind of letting it settle? Not Broncos focus, because we'll get there. But what was your take?
I think after day one, it was a good reminder that this class was a little bit chaotic. There were some guys that went where you expect them to go, but there were also some guys that felt like they either fell or were reached on. I think that probably started with Michael Williams at 11 for the Niners. I think that ultimately I kind of do like the pick, but I did feel like it was a reach, and for a guy for a team that feels like they can develop a defensive tackle or defensive lineman, I think that it makes sense. But that's kind of where it started. Then I feel like there was I like that Kenneth Grant went to Miami at 13.
I think that was your favorite one, man. You were more pumped for that than anything the Broncos would have done.
But it was just it's still a weird fit to me. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess when I think of Miami, I think of they like to play fast, and that's not exactly how Kenneth Grant plays. And so, not that he can't, but it's definitely not. Speed is not his game. It's definitely the power game.
I don't know, man. Did you see that? What was that video where was it Caleb Johnson that he ran down or whoever? He got some scoops.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Shelby Harris, right? And Shelby ran down whatever chief. Don't get it twisted. He is a freak of a man, considering, right? I mean, long speed is not his game, right? He is a power to speed guy. But yeah, I kind of get where Anthony Weaver is the defensive coordinator. So a lot of Baltimore defensive style. So it actually doesn't surprise me that they went big, Terrence Cody in Baltimore, Michael Pierce is a big cat. Even Travis Jones is 330. So they will like their defensive linemen heavier. And then, even the edge rushers, their edge rushers are usually larger dudes. And I think, pride themselves on being able to stop the run. So the culture of Miami, or at least what you think of Miami, it's not blue collar, that's for sure. So I can kind of see that doesn't fit for sure, but maybe, just maybe, they're trying to do something that's a little bit more, Baltimore Raven, shades of Baltimore kind of defensive schemes. That's it's a shot dark, but I'm glad that he got drafted. I'm glad that he got recognized as the talent that he is versus, the nose tackle, it's diamond, which a lot of them are. A lot of them aren't going to give you anything in the pass game.
Right.
And so you have to pay them accordingly. And that's why DJ Jones getting as much as he did, I think goes to show that they see him as a 3-down option, not necessarily that he'll always be there on 3rd down, but that he's capable of. Kenneth Grant, I think, has done a great job of being able to be a constant in the backfield, whether that's through the pass or through the run. And so he's a guy I'm looking. I'm gonna go look at Miami's depth chart real quick. Kind of want to see how that's. Yep, essentially, they drafted Kenneth Grant, 1st round, Jordan Phillips, who who is a player that I like for sure, in the 5th round, and then Zeke Biggers in the 7th round. They did not run a nose tackle scheme in Miami. They have been a 4-down 4-man front for a long time. I think maybe even the thought that you had, JT, was like that they were, if they're running what they ran, this does not fit. But you got Zach Seiler next to him, Baltimore ties, getting backed up by Matt Dickerson from San Francisco, similar in style with kind of the big. I just went through all of their nose tackles, at least on our lads. The depth chart is rookie, and so it's a new identity with Anthony Weaver there, and so. But again, I like that I think he was I had him high in the 1st round talent wise, and I'm glad that the NFL saw him as the value in that, and I'm kind of sad he didn't come as much as we'll talk about Barron, good player, Kenneth Grant. We had a crush. We had a man crush for that big soft animal.
And then the other ones of note, I think. Will Johnson falling out of the 1st round was surprising. Obviously, there's something going on with his medicals at the time that we were not aware of. That
it's got to be significant, right?
Yeah,
like it can't be. He had a bad hamstring,
Right. And then who's the other one? Oh, Jahad Campbell. Jahad Campbell fell further than I thought he was going to fall. Again, sounds like
back in the 1st round. That was interesting. I kind of thought, I thought he was he's kind of the dude when it comes to that position. And again, it goes to show that the league, that it doesn't. You can find those guys, as evidenced by the Broncos strategy, right? We'd rather go pay $11 million to approve in Dre Greenlaw, injured and all, than utilize a 1st round pick or a top 50 pick, or even first 3 rounds on a linebacker. I also wasn't overly impressed with the class, so I thought Campbell by far was the best, and you're gonna have to spend a little bit to get that guy. And then I thought he was gonna fall the 1st round, and but Chris, appreciate you chiming in for Will Johnson. He never ran the 40, from what I heard. Never ever ran the 40. Didn't run it in college. Didn't run it in. And I think Chris was telling me that. So not showing that you are healthy and can run. And then you corners and knees. I've heard it's
a little bit important.
What up, Big Cam?
We'll get to Broncos draft here in a second. I just want to know who is your favorite draft team this cycle?
Let me go second. 2. You go first.
Okay, I'm torn between 2. I'll pick one, and then I'll tell you who my runner-up was. For me, it was the Seattle Seahawks. I think that they had the most complete draft. I think they had draft. I think they had picks that they were valuing on day 2, including in the 7th round. I like how they built. I like the players that they took. Start with Gray Zabel, which I actually have heard to say it's Zabel, which was weird. I don't know if that's right or not, but regardless, interior offensive lineman, which is what we thought they would go. Then they go and grab Nick Imanwari, 2nd round, a guy that I love, but also just kind of jives with what defensively the kind of secondary players that they like. Tracy, big, long, athletic. Follow that up with Elijah Arroyo, a legit vertical threat from the tight end position. You grab Jalen Milroe as, hey, let's take a flyer on a developmental guy. If we have a coaching staff in place that feels like they can develop him, let's grab him. I think Riley Mills after that. Just a good pass rushing defensive lineman. A little maybe slightly undersized, but I like he plays with his hair on fire. He gives the effort every play. And then he got our guy Torrey Horton out of Colorado State.
Yep.
A guy that I think was a little underrated in this draft class. I think he started about where he should have been and then drifted down kind of as the all of the evaluations happened.
Yep.
And then you grab Damian Martinez and Ricky White in the 7th. I just think that's just really good.
Yeah, Ricky White's gonna be a player, man.
It's just really good value in the 7th round, I think. Throwing an offensive guard and Cable doing the 6th, see what he's got, and go from there. Overall, I think that was probably my favorite draft class, and I'm just glad it wasn't in our division.
Yeah. You know what's weird? I'm just kind of like peeking, and since we're gonna talk about the AFC West, I'm not gonna review any of them. But to be honest, man, like I really like. I think a lot of teams did a pretty good job. I think, Minnesota not having a 2nd round pick, I would say maybe they were one of the teams that I really didn't like. I really liked the Patriots kind of going outside that Will Campbell. Like this class was flawed, right? I think we talked about there's
for sure.
Me, you, and Chris were talking about like who are the all pros in this or Pro Bowl, like Travis. Like that's the only one that I feel like I would I feel really, really good about. And so my take being I like Will Campbell, so short arms and all. 3 years SEC, started as a true freshman. I would not give them praise. They were terrible. Trevion Henderson, Kyle Williams, I think is a dude that just gets open. Jared Wilson, I think, is a really young, moldable, but super athletic, strong center. Craig Woodson, I think, is a really good safety. Josh Farmer, going at 137, was a steal. So is Brandon Swinson in the 5th round. Edge rusher out of LSU. And so I mean, for a team that really needed talent, I thought that they did a pretty tremendous job, and raised the floor of their organization. They're still a little bit away from competing, but I like what they did. So really, the Saints, I think when I look at like who are teams that I didn't like, I thought the Saints played really weird chicken. Their draft plan is just,
they took shot. How do you say it?
Yeah, I don't even
know. Shug. I can't even say it.
Slappy Samsonite. That was way
But the fact that
I mean, in the end, like
it was just like a bit of a head scratcher to me. It was just, I mean, I guess if you love him, take him. But I don't know anyone that.
But you didn't love him. I mean, they got him in the 2nd round. You didn't love him.
I don't think,
if you love the quarterback, he doesn't get to the 2nd round, right? It's like the no man's land. That's we kind of like, it's like a shotgun marriage. Like, I guess we're in it, Yes. But you're not really hitching to the wagon, right? He's going to be 26 when the season starts. And mind you, he might be a really good person and a good football player, but just, I think poor. I think they did much better, like their day 3 picks. I like Sanker. I like Broughton, I think, but he's a 1-year wonder. Kelvin Banks, I think at 9. Could you not have moved back? Or maybe they tried. I feel like you could have gotten one. I think Simmons was a far superior player. So getting Calvin Banks that early, I'm not like overly mad about it. But then to follow it up with Shug, like that one still is. He's got to pan out, and if he doesn't, to waste a 2nd round pick, his top 45 pick, I think. They're 40th pick. That's borderline. We talked about like from Shug. So guys, like we talked about, probably even from top 10, top 15 to mid 2nd round, were probably all guys that were graded pretty similar. So throwing the number 40 pick out the window on a quarterback that you're not really committed to, is like, all right. Like he better play. He better get him out there. He's got 3 kids probably, and he already gets a discount on his insurance and stuff. And so, that one. Yep, not a fan. I think we obviously with the Shedeur opportunity. I don't know. Shuck. He might be I don't know, man. I mean, he had a really good year throwing the ball, but it took him 5 years to become a competent college quarterback. He was a highly thought of recruit, and it takes you 4 schools to like when you're a top 100 quarterback. It just, Jesus, what are we doing here? So that was the one. That's the one. To be honest with you, if that fan base, I'd be mad. Every other fan base, to be honest, I think they like most of the guys did pretty well. I think that this was a good deep class for like the middle rounds, and I think most teams got some pretty good value. Ones, a lot of first rounds were reaches, and then outside of that, it's like, oh yeah, not bad. Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of guys took their guy, the guy that they really liked, whether they felt like it was a bit of a reach or not. I'm not a big fan of what the Bengals did in the draft. I think that they at least got guys in positions of need, but I don't know if I like the personnel all that much that they grabbed.
I'm interested to see what their defense looks like with a new coordinator after some time. But yeah, Shamar Stewart, like that's a guy that's like, is he really going to complement, Hendricks or replace him?
Right.
Tons of physical attributes. Yeah, but he's 4.5 sacks in 3 seasons.
Right.
Like that's not great, Bob. I was looking. I also didn't like
solid, but
let's crap on some more teams. So that's Tampa Bay. I like some of the players, but I really like Ibuka. That would have been great in orange and blue. But you just got, one of the Washington receivers last year in the 3rd round, McMillan, who really started to come on. You have Trey Palmer still, then you have Chris Godwin, and you got Mike Evans. And though those 2 guys are at the tail end, they're both making a substantial amount of money, and we've seen receivers come into the league and contribute pretty quick. So that one's just interesting. There's only one football, and their throwing attack last year was not the problem. So maybe stopping people. I mean, they did a good job coming back with Morrison and Parrish. I even like some of their defensive folks that they got in on day 3, but those guys aren't going to be difference makers right away. So, it's going to be another AFC South track meet.
Yeah.
Nothing makes the Saints look like they have a capable offense like a Tampa Bay Buccaneer defense,
Right. My runner-up for a team that I liked most was the Giants. Even with the moving up for Jackson Dart, I'm not necessarily a Jackson Dart believer. I do like some of his traits. I do think he has some possibility to be a starter. I don't know if his ceiling is top 10 in NFL QB, but I think it's definitely something they needed to address. So they addressed it. I would have taken Shedeur, but that's just me. Obviously, you walk away with Abdul Carter, who everyone thinks to be a pretty blue chip prospect. Should be. You get Darius Alexander in the 3rd, who a lot of people had. Some people had a day 1 grade on, if not, 2nd round grade. They ended up with him at 63 in the 3rd round. They walked away with Scatterbo, which I kind of like Scatterbo. I wouldn't have been too upset if the Broncos grabbed him at some point, but obviously, that didn't come to fruition. But I think that he offers something to that backfield that they don't have.
Yeah, and to the team even, right? Like culture-wise, I don't know that that's I look at the Giants as like a tough-minded team, and I think having a guy like that's going to run over you in practice, no matter that's good. I like Membao. I think Fedone is a nice low risk. Yeah, I don't even mind Jackson Dart. Like I'll be shocked a little bit if he pans out. But like I don't like, they were doing a song and dance with Shedeur for like a really long time. He's wearing his cleat, he has the New York Giant cleats at the Alamo Bowl. Like, what are we like? That's not. He didn't just do that. So I don't know what happened, and maybe that's what got Shedeur in trouble a little bit. He assumed the Giants were his floor. And so, like, I'm not really going to like try in these interviews when I know I'm at least going to go 3. And it bit him in the rear. But for a franchise that really could have used kind of the starlight, right? Like they didn't take that route. We'll see if it works out. But even if Shedeur is that, does he beat Russ out? Does he beat Jameis? I don't know if that's an immediate play right there. And if it's me, if I am going to get Shedeur, I want him to play today. He's a little bit older, not old, but he's a little older. Should be able to handle it. Like he doesn't really need to sit and watch. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see what it's hard to like, the Giants are kind of the Jets now.
Yeah.
Just a little bit of, no matter what you all do, like you're just going to mess it up probably.
I did like the Jets draft, though, I will say. I'll give him.
I did too. I mean, again, it was the, not desperate. Fields isn't probably going to move the needle too far for that franchise, but they were at a position in the draft where it wasn't, Membao, I think it was my O-line one. Mason Taylor, phenomenal second round pick, I think. Good tight end, has NFL chops. Thomas from Florida State is young and can grow into it. Arian Smith, Malachi Moore. I mean, guys just cut their teeth in the SEC.
Yeah.
And then you got a couple guys, I think, who Mauga, linebacker from Miami. I think he's going to be a good core special teams kind of guy. Maybe can contribute, help out, grow into defense. There's not a lot of competition on that defense right now, so why not? Right. And then I think Tyler Barron he's a pretty good player. I think he's going to carve out a nice little spot in their edge rotation. So, I like what they did. I think that they stood strong. I don't think that they made any moves or any real big moves, and they took good football players, and usually that's how you get better.
Yep. Let's talk. Let's talk AFC West.
Yep.
I don't. Do we want to go through? I'll just name off the picks for each team real quick. We'll start with Kansas City. First round grab Josh Simmons, offensive tackle, Ohio State. Second round Omar Norman Lott, defensive tackle, Tennessee. Round 3, Ashton Gelotti or Gelot, I'm not sure how it's pronounced. Edge, Louisville. Round 3, Noel Williams, cornerback, Cal. Round 4, Jalen Royals, wide receiver, Utah State. Round 5, Jeffrey Bassa, linebacker, Oregon. And round 7, Bashard Smith, running back, SMU. Solid draft for me. It's not one. There's a little bit of risk they took in some of those picks. I think that Simmons, just because of his medicals, is a little bit of a risk. I think he ultimately, as far as talent goes, could be the best offensive tackle in this draft class, if not, top 2 or 3. But there's a big question. I think they said it was a patellar tendon. That's kind of a big deal. It's not the same as a torn meniscus or something. There's definitely more of a rehab and process that goes into that. So we'll see how he progresses as we get close to the season. They grabbed Omar Norman Lott, who's a guy I do like quite a bit, but I think the risk with him is that he is primarily a pass rusher, and we don't really know what he has in the run game. So I don't know if you feel good about grabbing a undersized defensive tackle who can pass the rush the passer in the second round. I mean, if he does it at a high level, then I think it's probably a fine pick. But I think it's not a guy that you can plug and play at all times, I don't think. And then I think Royals in the 4th round was probably their best value pick. I know you're a big Bashard Smith fan, so I'll let you talk about him. But Royals is a guy that I expected to go before round 4. I'm interested to see. I wonder if just size was something that was not favorable for him. But I think he's got some potential to be probably a wide receiver too. He's got some wide receiver 2 ceiling.
Yep. Yeah, I think Smith in that offense is gonna. That sucks.
Yeah,
like he's gonna be. He's a legit receiving threat out of the backfield. It kind of complements the. I assume that Kareem Hunt will play there again this year, no matter what. So you kind of got the downhill running styles of Pacheco and presumably Hunt, because that's what will happen. And then you really have the, Jerick McKinnon, that kind of presence, I think, in the Jalen Royals in the 4th round. If he went in the 2nd round, I would have thought that was a good pick. And Noel Williams is a really good man corner, and that's what they play in Kansas City. So I think that's a seamless transition there. Gillette, at least I thought that's just like he's a good football player. No real huge attribute, but a guy that gets the quarterback, makes the most out of what he's got.
And
Norman Lott was the best pass rusher, interior defensive lineman, I think, in the country, especially if you look at pass rush win rate. And then, if Josh Simmons can stay healthy, right? Like that was one guy I didn't want to go there.
Right.
Like I like being able to hit Patrick Mahomes. I think it's fun.
Yeah, sure.
And so that one's like tough, especially you get rid of Thuney and like, all right, like maybe we got some recoil up front. Like, no, they're gonna do fine. Which I wasn't expecting them to, to swing and miss too much, but like what they did, I think they had a good draft. I think it was very business-like, let's go address what we need to address. And I think that they did. And I think their football team was much better, when we woke up on Monday after the draft than it was before. And for a team that doesn't have the luxury of having a lot of money to be able to spend, or at least being smart about how they do it, I thought they hit out of the park. I thought they made some really good picks.
Yeah. Solid draft overall, I think. Let's go Chargers next. Round 1 picked Omarion Hampton, which was someone slated for the Broncos in a lot of mocks. Second round, Trey Harris, wide receiver, Mississippi. Third round, Jamari Caldwell, defensive tackle, Oregon. Round 4, Kyle Kennard, edge, South Carolina. Round 5, Keandre Lambert Smith, wide receiver, Auburn. Also round 5, Aronde Gadsden, the second, tight end, Syracuse. Round 6, Branson Taylor, guard, Pittsburgh. Round 6, RJ Mickens, safety, Clemson. And round 7, Triquize Bridges, quarterback, Florida. I don't know him, but walked away feeling like they definitely needed to put some emphasis on their offensive skill players, and they ended up grabbing a number of them. Obviously, Omarion Hampton, like I said, is someone that they slated. A lot of people slated to the Broncos in the first round. Didn't ultimately
most
go
people.
there. Yeah.
That was the most consistent outside of Cam Ward at 1.
Yeah, Trey Harris is
Travis 2. That was the next highest consistent one. So
for sure. Trey Harris, I like. I think he's got potential. I think he probably has the most. I wouldn't say. I think he's going to be a player. I don't know if he's going to be a wide receiver 1, but I think he's got some upside. So I think he could be, especially on a team that's kind of continually searching for that guy. Could he end up being that guy? Possibly. From there, I'm not in love with their draft. I think RJ Mickens is a good value pick in 6. I think he has some starting potential. Gadsden in round 5, tight end out of Syracuse, is interesting just because I don't know what he is in the NFL. I don't know if he's a receiver. I don't know if he's a tight end. I don't know if he's something else, just like a gadget player. He's just kind of a bit of an in-between. He's a tweener for a receiver tight end. But clearly talented pass catcher in Syracuse and productive in their offense. So I'll be interested to see how they use them. Any standouts for you with the Chargers?
To be honest with you, I really like Trey Harris. That one, like essentially some of the best receivers that I would have wanted in Denver landed in the AFC West and not Denver. With Royals. And I think Trey Harris, I think he's going to be a good professional receiver. Do I think that Pat Surtain's going to have a difficult time necessarily with him a lot? No. But that's because he's a unicorn. And, but I think he definitely gives them the perfect outside complement to McConkey inside. And so, upgrade over Quentin Johnson. Kudos to them for finding a guy and not being scared about it or too loyal to Quentin, But I think they got good players around. It's got day 3 is a dart throw. Gadsden at 165. If you hit, he's Antonio Gates and people for 10 years. And if you don't, name the Chargers 5th round pick 3 years ago. Okay. Fair enough. I do think defensively, Caldwell and Kennard are good players. I don't know how. I don't think that they're standalone impactful players.
Right. I agree with that. I think they may be more like rotational guys, and I think that Kennard has some upside. He's definitely traitsy. He's definitely a guy that you can take a risk and see what you get out of him, and maybe it would be a good fit. Someone you play behind. What's his name? Their edge. Their end that's older. Khalil Mack. Yeah, I couldn't think of this right now, but someone to develop behind him. I think it's not a bad pick for them. I think again, like you said, it's all about throwing darts and taking calculated risks. I think that's one. I think Gadsden's one. I think Mickens is one. You're kind of betting on some traits and some experience, and we'll see how that plays out. But probably to me, of the three, maybe the weakest draft. But let's hit the Raiders real quick so we can make that determination for sure. Round one, Ashton Gianti, running back, Boise State, pick 6. Jack Besh, pick 26 in the second round. Wide receiver, TCU. Darian Porter, cornerback, Iowa State in the third. Caleb Rogers, offensive lineman, Texas Tech, also in the third. Charles Grant, offensive tackle, William Mary, also in the third. And then Deontay Thornton, wide receiver, Tennessee, in the fourth. Tonka Hemingway, defensive tackle, South Carolina, in the fourth. JJ Pegues, defensive tackle, Mississippi, in the sixth. Tommy Mellott, wide receiver, Montana State, in the sixth. Cam Miller, quarterback, North Dakota State, in the sixth. And Cody Lindenberg, linebacker, Minnesota, in the seventh. Lots of picks for them. I'll let you go first on this one. Anyone's that stand out to you aside from maybe GNT?
No, I mean, I like the feel-good story of Jack Beck. I think he's a good player. Again, raising floor. Darren Porter, I like in the sense of their defense was atrocious, and if you hit on a guy that has all the physical tools, they're going to be much better coached. A guy with good speed, length in a cover 3, assuming that's what Pete Carroll wants to do again. That's a good archetype, right? That's a faster Sherman. I like Dante Thornton. I think he's a big play guy that they needed. Again, some really good depth guys. I think I don't love Rogers or Grant, but I think, odds are one of those guys pans out. And their cupboard was so bare. They're picking at the beginning of each round pretty much that you really couldn't have messed. Like, they have so many areas, just draft the best player, literally like BPA, because you're terrible. And so I think Ashton Genty was that, right? Like, he's the best player on the board. Could they have gotten sufficient enough running game or running back later on? Absolutely. Take a high, but you know what? Like, best player, their offense potentially was going to struggle anyhow. You get a guy that you really can lean on, and they will. I think that's kind of a organizational shift. We'll see what it looks like, because Ashton Genty, at least at Boise, like, they're well coached, and in that conference they have the best players in that conference. So what happens when you go out of conference and all that stuff, but the offensive line still has to be able to do their job, and we'll see if that's there. But you got the highest upside kind of impact guy outside of Travis Hunter, and even just for your fans, I don't think Ashton Genty is going to bust. Maybe he isn't Adrian Peterson, but I think he's going to be a good player. Yeah. And, for that fan base, that's got to like feel pretty good in the sense of you got Brock Bowers. Yep. And now you got Ashton Genty. Like, you have some good, solid offensive pieces. You add Geno Smith, who will play competent quarterback, right? He's no Bo Nix, but there's that. Outside of that, like, I still don't know what they're doing on defense. Like, they let their linebackers go, and then didn't get didn't get anyone really. And so you're relying on Eric Stokes. And, so could they have went a little bit heavier on defense? Even for their offensive line. I mean, Dylan Parham was a third round pick. Jackson Powers Johnson was a second round pick. And then you got Colton Miller. So at least you've put in some good resources in your offensive line, your defense. It's not going to be great, Bob. But you know what? They weren't going to fix this whole thing in one offseason anyway. So at least you infuse some offensive talent, and you hope that the competency of Pete Carroll and whoever their defensive coordinator is going to be will help raise the bar and giving your team success, managing the offense correctly to reduce the friction on the defense, stuff that they've been so crappy coached for a while that it's going to look a lot different. And I think that this draft, filled a lot of their needs, but they had so many that, you look at it, 50 of these guys are going to pan out, 50%, and then it's still only 5 real solutions out of this draft, which is a 11-player draft,
For sure.
It's interesting that Seattle and the Raiders, so you got John Schneider, you got Pete Carroll, you got the Seattle tie. They kind of drafted the same-ish. And really traded back in round 2, got some extra picks, as many at the dartboard. It's really it's Baltimore-ish also with kind of how they've done stuff. So that's just interesting to me. Didn't spend a lot in free agency, and you really let's get a guy pretty much in every position group, instead of overly saturating one. Let's get, let's try and add at least something to every room. And I like that. I think, unless even if you got a strength, we'll talk about the Broncos in a second. But I liked what all of the AFC West teams did. So I pick holes in all of them because it's fun. But I think that they all got better, which sucks for us.
It does. Yeah, I do think that they all got better in certain ways too. I like the Darian Porter pick for the Raiders. I think it's a good value pick, and I think he's a guy that is good man to man, especially in press. I think he's an interesting player. Charles Grant, I kind of like. I think he's got a high ceiling. He's just not very experienced. He did play left tackle his whole career, so we'll see if that is where he ends up playing or not. I've seen that they'll try and move him around and see how he does, but he's definitely raw. He didn't start playing football until I think maybe his junior year of high school, so he's kind of one of those late bloomer NFL guys. And then JJ Piquet's defense tackle out of Mississippi, just interesting dude. This guy that I think he's the one, if I remember correctly, they had him out there for some offensive plays and scored some touchdowns, rushing the ball. It's interesting to have a little bit of a fun wild card towards the end of that draft class, but solid draft all the way. All right, let's talk about the Broncos. Yeah. We've given enough introduction to the other teams. Now we got to talk about our team. Round 1, pick 20, Jahdae Barron. Just first gut reaction to the initial pick, and then now that we've simmered with it, how you feeling about it?
Yeah, I think the initial one was the same for all of us. We were off. I didn't.
Yeah.
Not for a while. For a while we had talked about safety. I'm in Warrior, Starks even. I had Jahdae Barron in that a little bit too for because he's played mostly that star until this season. The reason why he came back was to be able to play outside and essentially earn more money, which worked real well for him being a first round pick. Yeah. At the moment, for sure, it was, it would have been nice to have the juice. And so I think that there was some initial letdown, and they only had 7 picks. And Sean Payton is not a guy who's going to maximize the dart throws. That's never been his style. He's a 5 to 7 draft guy. He wants to go get his guys. And so I knew that there was going to be minimal chance probably for them to get a guy that I liked, because I didn't think that they would trade back much at all, which I was glad that they did a little bit of maneuvering in round 2 to get, to be able to get that extra third, which was great. After thinking about it though and getting some extra time, I'm like in love with it. It's a 4.39 guy, was all-state track guy, and so not necessarily Usain Bolt fast, but he's not slow. And we've seen where when you don't have speed across the field, and especially being able to do that, you got Kareem Jackson and Justin Simmons in the back, and you are really susceptible, and it kind of limits how much you can disguise, how much you can go over, all that good stuff. So looking at it, because of his versatility as well, it makes me happy now. And I got there pretty quick after. I would have liked a brand new toy. But to be honest, like when the guys were coming off the board, it wasn't like, oh, we could have had. I didn't feel that. I didn't feel like there was a particular person I was in love with, and that helped me feel a little bit better about like, no, offense is the pizzazz, right? Skill positions, that's points, that's fantasy football. But I think that they got probably the best value in terms of like consensus view on Barron. Most people had him in the top 12. And like I said before, if you're going to move up in the first round, you move up to go get a blue chip. You don't move up to get like a pretty good player. And I think that he is a blue chip prospect. I think he's going to be a guy that's named. I'm gonna put myself out there now. I think he's going to be a multi-time Pro Bowler. I think he's going to be a guy that really helps reshape how this defense is played because of his inside-out versatility. I think he's got ball skills, right? There's guys who have the knack for the ball, and pick came off a tip, and there's a lot of guys that are in position or nearby when tips happen and can't make the play and can't make it a lot, and then there are guys that do. Kareem Jackson was not a turnover guy. Justin Simmons was a turnover guy. And not all of them were, where he broke in and all the stuff. Sometimes it's quarterback doesn't know what they're looking at. He's in the right place, right time. Yep, but you got to make the play, and he's a playmaker. And so they didn't get a joker on offense in the first round, but they damn sure got kind of the defensive version of that. That's going to be a chess piece kind of guy. You add that with Hufanga. You add that, in my opinion, kind of Singleton and his ability to play all over the place. I think you got some guys that can maybe be out of position and get in position, or some of the stuff that I think you can confuse some quarterbacks when you're playing against. Geno is a pro, limited or not. I think he's top 5 in passing yards over there since he became a starter in the NFL. It doesn't happen on accident. You're not nobody. You got Herbert, you got Mahomes. There could be things that we were more upset about. The Broncos doing them. Hey, you have to play those 3 quarterbacks. All of them have been Pro Bowlers recently. One is the best in the game. And you probably should have guys that can cover and stuff. And we saw with the 2015 Broncos, right? Bradley Roby was a first-round pick. And his presence in when you had 2 All-Pros was the difference. And I think that this, if PJ Locke is your third safety, and you got Jaquan who can play, can play some good snaps inside, you can do some pretty cool stuff. And I think that this will be a defense that really can go to a next level now. Deltha O'Neal was a turnover guy, and he was phenomenal and had a very long career. He was even successful in Cincinnati, which most people can't say that.
That's true. I am better with the pick today than I was on draft day. Quite a bit better. I think on draft day, I was surprised. I thought that they were going with some sort of skill position, probably. And when they didn't, and I would have been okay with them not doing that. I just thought, with such a deep defensive tackle group, some interesting options at running back, some interesting options at wide receiver. I ideally I want him back. Now, kind of in hindsight, really the only player I would have rather they taken is probably Jod Campbell, just because I think he's a stud, and I think that he's going to be a steal for the Eagles. But kind of in hindsight, I do like the versatility. He's not exactly my favorite type of prospect. He's a little undersized for a DB. He's 5'10", but he's also a little. I don't know. He's 205. He's solid. He's very athletic. He plays downhill really well. He's a little out of control at times. He's not like your Pat Surtain cornerback, right? He just plays a very different style. He's much more of a reactive, read and react kind of guy. And so I am. It's grown on me for sure, and I like the fact that there's defensive versatility there. I don't know that he's an outside corner. I think best case scenario is that he is, and so that I hope that he is. But regardless, if he can play nickel and safety, I think it lets you roll out probably, your best defensive back lineups as you need to, and or if someone goes down injury, you've got some insurance there. So I do like that piece of it. And to be honest, if they had taken Will Johnson, I don't think I would have felt the same, just because he's more of a prototypical cornerback to me. But it's not like he's that far off from Will Johnson as far as overall talent and what he can bring to this defense. So
I mean, if you look at it, right, like what's the difference between 6'1.5" and 5'11"? Right. So he gives up like 1.5 inches maybe to Will Johnson. We know how fast he is. We do not know how fast Will Johnson is. Will Johnson's pretty smooth.
He's probably faster than Will Johnson.
Yeah. And he's willing to I don't know if Johnson is a tackler or willing, but I know that Jahdae Barron will come up and smack a kid. And that part, like if you're going to have the inside out versatility, like you got to be fierce in the run game. Chris Harris and Aqib Talib, like they'll hit. And that's what, Chad Bailey, that's what made those guys special. Pat, you can't attack them in they're not going to give ground in any particular area. And so he is a guy that I think at minimum raises the floor of that room. So is he better than Riley Moss? Not yet. Maybe. We don't know. But it's also because Riley Moss was pretty good. Had a rough comeback after being injured. But when he was healthy, was a damn good player. And Jaquan has had some good moments. And so to me, it's a little iron sharpens iron, and, maybe he becomes the third best safety and PJ is relegated. Like that's good problems to have in an area where you can't be thin at. Because we saw what happened last year, right? So when Riley got hurt, we did not recover, right? Pat gets half of the field and they start torching us for forever. Jerry Judy's career got made because Riley Moss got hurt. Well, my man JT just dips, just hits a button, dips out. I agree, Chris. Is 5'11" is fine. Cornerback. Let's go to day two. Day two. We got RJ Harvey at 60 after 2 trade backs. I'm not going to go over the trades because there's a whole bunch of trade value chart, and they exchanged like 20 selections. They left with 7 players. 20 selections changed hands some way, shape, or form, if I recall. But RJ Harvey and Pat Bryant, give me your take. Go. Just kidding. I paused like a jerk because I was gonna make you say something, but can't hear you.
What? You can't hear
there
me?
You go.
Can you hear me now?
Right. Yep.
RJ Harvey, I'm a fan of the pick. I do think it was a bit of a reach. But obviously the Paytons saw a prospect that they liked and they weren't afraid to go and take them. And I'm okay with that ultimately. I think especially with a position like running back, the saying is you can find talent, at the end of drafts. Well, if you have a guy that you like and you think fits seamlessly into your offense, just go get him. Like, I don't have a problem with him doing that. I know some people didn't like the value there. I think we needed a running back. It was one of our biggest glaring needs in the draft. If you need to reach to get the guy that you think is going to be your RB1, then go do it. And I'm fine with that. Great between the tackles, strong, physical, can get into the end zone. Maybe a little bit of question about his long speed, but I think that he's going to be exactly what this offense needs and as far as production from the running back position, especially someone you can plug in day one and go. Pat Bryant, I think, is an X receiver, wide receiver 2. I think he can stretch the field. I think he's got great hands. Again, people didn't like the value here. I think that him being a 3rd-round pick was fine. I think that maybe people looked at his production last year and didn't put it at the same level as some of the other guys. But I think, you know, and I think it's the same thing that happened with Alec Iomanor. It's just sometimes it's the team that you're on and the season that you have, right? And not that Illinois had a bad season, but I just think that he is going to outplay where he was going to be, or he was seen to be drafted. I think he's got talent. I think that they did. I do think they reached a little bit, but I like the player more than I dislike the reach. So both, I'm fine with both of those.
Yeah, you know, that's it. That I like it in that. So for RJ Harvey, I thought that there were guys that I would have liked, Caleb Johnson being one that I would have thought would have fit like the bell cow model in my head, right? To me, I was like smaller back later. I don't know why. And then I kind of thought about it. And I think I posted a few of these, right? Jahmyr Gibbs, RAS, RJ Harvey's RAS is pretty damn similar and pretty impressive to think about. That RJ Harvey is a bell cow running back. So he's 5'9", 100 or 205 pounds. He is yoked. Like dude is a muscle hamster. Like it's like, you know, like, you know, Doug Martin was little, but he's going to tote the rock 25 times a game. He's going to wear you down. So because he's not, you know, he doesn't have a 6-foot frame, I actually think works into his benefit. So I think he's a guy that the lack of height, as I also run into sometimes. I don't know if you ever tried to tackle a very small guy behind a very big guy.
Yeah.
So, you know, finding that guy, I think that this actually is phenomenal. I think Audric Estime, they're going to give him the benefit of the doubt. The kid was 21. He had just turned 21 before then, and then is an NFL game. I think his power, I expect him to elevate. And I think with that, I think RJ Harvey is going to be pretty dynamic. I really am excited about it now. I think he's a guy that was undervalued, even in his own system, considering he was their offense. Like Central Florida, you know, him and Hudson, I think was a pretty good receiver.
For sure.
They all knew he was getting the ball, and the dude did work at Central. Like, you know, being kind of aware of that a little bit, you know, some of the things that he did, you know, he's kind of a poor man's Ashton Genty a little bit. If you like Ashton at 5'9", RJ Harvey, like, you know, I don't think they're the same caliber of player, but I would expect for a team that had some really low big play, you know, opportunities. I think this is going to be a guy that helps break that. Pat Bryant, I actually have been really high on Pat Bryant for the whole time, and it made me feel like it's one of those times that it's like, yes, I knew he was better than you guys thought.
Yeah.
Normally, that doesn't ever actually work for me. It's the other way around. And so, and then to hear the comp from Sean Payton saying, you know, he has a lot of the traits that Mike Thomas had when he came out. Like, whoa, yeah. I mean, watch him play. He doesn't play slow. He runs away from guys. His contested catch, like competitive spirit in those is pretty phenomenal. And so he runs a 4.6 40 time. And, you know, I put it next to Puka Nacua. Like, he has a better athletic profile than Puka does, and Puka does just fine. Cooper Kupp does just fine. Like that's all right. If we get into, he doesn't have the long speed. How many times are you throwing the ball just straight goes in the NFL? You're not. And that's not what this team needed. You have Franklin and you have Evan Ingram, even at his position, and you have Mims. Like you needed a guy that can compete in the middle of the field, can body up, and then on top of that, right, to come out in your first interview and say, no rock, no block, no rock.
Yeah.
Yep. That's a guy that you're going to get behind. And so I'm super excited for Pat Bryant. I think he's going to have a bigger impact on this offense as a rookie than we would think. I think he's also a guy who will come play special teams, and like that part's super exciting. You get a day two guy. I think a lot of times you come in thinking like, hey, I'm going to be featured and a big part of the offense or defense, and I'm not really going to have to do some of that stuff. I think RJ Harvey potentially could be a really dynamic kick returner. If you want to save Marvin a little bit, and you got Pat Bryant, who, if you've seen him block, is not worried about putting his face into someone's chest. And so kind of saw that through day 3. So I actually really like that. I'm going to roll into Savion Jones, who was a player that I really liked, a younger defensive lineman at LSU. I think he has position versatility. He's probably going to play on the line, but I really like that addition. I think it's JFM insurance. See how he looks in the first month of the season. If he's ready, then you don't free up JFM. If he's not, then you offer JFM a contract. But I think it gives them a little bit of like wait and see with, in my opinion, some high upside. Q Robinson then was as Nick Saban said, the best special teams player I've ever coached. For Nick Saban to say this, he is the best special teams player ever coached. When you have 5 stars leaking out of everywhere, you've had since in the NFL. Nick Saban is a guy that I think throws kisses and warm hugs at people. So I'm going to go ahead and take him for that. That said, he's really athletic and had just started to kind of cut his chops as a pass rusher. But him coming in and knowing that he's going to have to contribute on special teams, I think will really help kind of the solidification of that group. That really was a phase. Like if you looked at where stuff was balanced, like they are a good special teams unit, but not a dynamic one, right? Not one that I think you can make things happen. You add Jeremy Crenshaw. I don't like drafting Florida Gators, but drafting a rugby punter from Australia is always a win. And that was a position, to be honest, especially at altitude where it can be a weapon. And a 6th-round pick for a punter is just as good to me as a 6th-round pick on a tackle. The likelihood that he will start and have a long career at punter is much higher than if you drafted a position player in that round, just based on value. And then the Caleb Lohner dart throw, athletic 6'6" to 6'8", depending on what we read. It has a good mentality for like, I took basketball as far as I could. And then, I think it helped prepare me in understanding how to play the game of football, boxing out, positional stuff. He's going to have to, he's going to be a practice squatter for a bit. And, at 241, if he hits, even if it's like a little bit with that physical makeup, even if it's in 2 years, right? Julius Thomas took 2 years to pop. He was a basketball player. Jimmy Graham, go through it. Like that's not a bad route to go. And if you're going to take a dart throw on a late tight end, like why not do one that's like, hey, if we hit, like we have someone that can compete at the top end. We're not getting a tight end 2 ceiling. We're getting a guy that could be, he's mossing cats in the end zone because he dunked on people 2 hands all over the place. So I really like what the draft did. It very much was this is our personality. I think that this was a very good marriage between George Payton and Sean Payton. And I think you saw that, right? You saw what Sean wants. And I think you saw the alignment and going to get it. The trade backs, I thought showed where George Payton's value was. Ability to move back up for Savion Jones, I think showed that the team had, I think, a good confidence about it. And I think the Jahdae Barron pick flipped their draft plans upside down. I really believe that they didn't think he was going to get to them. So that wasn't a guy that they were really like banking on because they had a trade back ready to go. Sounds like that that Travion Henderson would have been the pick in the trade back like early, and Jahdae Barron in their eyes was so dang good that the Barron and Harvey was a much better and enticing thought than Henderson and whoever they could have got, which probably isn't going to be a corner. A day 2 corner outside of Will Johnson getting super healthy. I don't know of a day 2 cornerback that I'm like, he's going to come in and like, he's going to make their defense better today. Or even a defender at 20, to be honest with you, that I would have thought like, hey, they're going to come in and contribute as a rookie to help this team like really kind of get there. And I think Jahdae Barron was one of those guys that can. And then they're all like captains, man. So it was very much we're going to get guys that are high character guys that love football, that have been leaders, up to and including Crenshaw. I heard his first interview after being drafted, just talked about the experiences with the guys. Like, I value my time with these guys and like the classes of guys that came through. And you can see that kind of connectivity. And I think Caleb Lohner was a captain on a couple of the basketball teams that he was on. So just, you got guys that are now, especially when you look at college football professionals, when they come in, and that's kind of what they were looking for.
Yeah. Yeah. I was going to address Chris's comment. He says, Harvey has juice. My only concern is with him being so old, like, what is the ceiling? I do think it's a legitimate concern. I also think that if there's a guy, here's what I'll say. I think outside of the first round and some of those like obvious blue chip guys, running back's a little bit of a crapshoot. I think that you're more likely going to find success if you are drafting guys that are a better fit for your scheme than they are just overall talent. And I think that's probably what the Broncos did here. And I think they like the player. Don't get me wrong. I don't think that they're down on RJ Harvey and just see him as a scheme fit. However, I think that they think that he can be an elite scheme fit. And who knows what the health of a running back in the NFL is going to be. I mean, I think if you're drafting a running back thinking you'll get 10 years out of him, that's really optimistic.
I think that's even idealistic, right? Like, you shouldn't. Right. That's not how anyone else views it. Don't be that team that you're drafting a guy because of how long you think he's going to play for you, for sure.
Right. And so I think you just have to, if you like a guy, you think he fits what you do well,
yep.
You like, he brings the things that you value to that team. I don't mind a reach for a guy, especially at that position, and especially on a team like the Broncos that don't have any other options right now. You're gonna.
Well, and if you love that guy and you think he gives your offense something that you don't have, and you are pretty sure he's not going to get there at the next pick in the draft, it's like we look at value a ton because we rank, and it's fun, to be honest with you, right? Like maximizing who you get. But if you're in that room, it's like you got to feel good about the guys you go get, and you got to understand, what's your prioritization based on need and evaluation, and like, are you okay risking it? And am I sold on any of these guys? No, especially a guy that's got the physical profile. That said, he is a tackle breaker. He runs inside. He averages more yards running between the guards than he does outside. I think that helps sell me a little bit on his willingness to put his face down and go get some yards. Am I going to give him the ball in 3rd and 1 a lot? No. I mean, hopefully that's a Audric Esme is there for, but he's also a guy that produced at a school where he was the offense for 2 years. And if you're gearing up to stop him and he's still running all over you, and there's something to that. Like, the guy's at least worth the. Could they have tried to get him later? Maybe. And maybe they tried and that's when the deals dried up. But I feel okay with it. I think he's going to be a guy that's a day 1 contributor. And at least if you're picking a guy in the 2nd round, that's what you want, right? You want a guy that's going to come in right away and play for you.
For sure. Final, just quick piece. What's your final grade for the Broncos draft class?
I'd say if I have to grade now, I think like a B. I think just solid B. A solid B. I think there's a lot of projection in the sense of like how they fit. And if they maximize the fit, I think, when we look at it at the end of the year and look back on the class, I think it reserves the right to go up. But, I don't think that there's a ton of players in here that are like scheme versatile, like a lot, RG Harvey, like he's not going to be great in every offense. Pat Bryant, not going to be great in every offense. So I think it's like for Sean Payton, I think that these are really good players. We'll see how it goes out. But because I don't think that these are guys that I would feel really good, if Sean Payton gets fired in 2 years, I worry about who's left, like that kind of thing. So that's why I say a B.
Yeah. I think I'll say B-. I'm always a little more negative than you,
Yep.
but only because I think that they did a little bit. I think that they, as far as value goes, I think they got who they wanted. But I think as far as like NFL valuation, like is that who the majority of NFL teams have taken up those picks? Probably not. But ultimately, I like the players. I like the guys that they walked away with, and I do think that that Savion was a good value pick for them. So I don't think that they completely lost it. And obviously, Jahdae Barron, if they feel so strongly about him at 20 that they kind of threw their plans out the window to trade back, like they found value in that pick. And I think a lot of pretty much anyone that saw that pick was a big fan of them taking Jahdae Barron. So I would say overall B-, but I like the guys that they ended up with. So
yeah.
All right, we're going to wrap it here. We went a little long today. We didn't even get talked about the Nuggets, who dominated. Let's hope they close them out tomorrow. Avs need a win tonight so they can stay alive and try and rally on Friday or Saturday. So we'll definitely get into that as next week rolls around. But we appreciate you being with us today. Appreciate you waiting. And I know the technical difficulties set us back a little bit, but we still made it happen. And next week we should be set to go. So I say that, knock on wood.
Knock on wood. We're good. We got it out of our systems.
But we appreciate you guys for listening. Reach out if you ever want to talk sports with us on Twitter. And if you need a sports prescription, ask a doctor.
All right, y'all.
Fast lane when I pass in the street, bag of money in the passenger seat. Simcoe's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never come down, cause the coast racking up the flame out. So high, I might never come down, so what, this is my lifestyle. Wait a minute. Work hard for the car, so that's why it's all tinted. Wait a minute. Had a real late night, woke up with my